Hey guys, it's been a while. I hope you've been doing well. Now, it might be winter time, but cold hands aren't going to stop me from getting a solve in every now and then. I thought it would be, not covered in ice. Alright, let's see. Oh yeah, there you go. See, that's what you want right there. It's it's cold. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's icy. It's real icy. This is miserable. I'm not gonna lie, this is miserable. My hands are cold. This was not a well thought out idea at all. Get to see different kinds of ice, I guess. I mean, one good thing about having to clear the ice, if you're trying to be positive here, which I am, no point being negative about it, at least I'm pre-chilling. You know what I mean? Right out of the house, this would be brutal. I don't think I'd want to go in the water, because I'm warm and comfortable and lazy. But now that I'm exposed to the elements, okay. Actually pretty good. J-perm. Yes! Yes! That was a long walk home. Alright, I think that's enough intro. So, I'm making a puzzle again. This time it's a 19-layer Mega Minx. There's no official naming scheme for it, so I'll have to come up with something, but for now it's the 19-layer Mega Minx. Now, after making the 22x22, I promised myself never again. Never again. That was just ridiculous, but here we are. So yeah, this video is just going to be documenting a little bit of the very early process, kind of where I'm at this point. I never really did that with the 22x22. It was more of kind of in secret, and I didn't make too many behind-the-scenes videos with it, and this time I want to be very different with that. I want to document most of the process. And I didn't document the original the process so far too thoroughly, so this video is mostly just kind of getting you guys up to speed with what I've done, and hopefully that'll be the first of a series of videos over the next few months leading up to the actual completed puzzle. Alright, so this is the core of the puzzle. So, it is made of two of these gigantic hemispheres. And these were each a 24-hour print, which is easily the biggest print I've ever done, and since I hate myself, I did both of these prints back to back, so it was basically 48 hours in a tiny cabin with a 3D printer going day and night. Now you might be wondering why the sides are truncated like this. The reason is that this is basically the biggest a part can be. If I didn't truncate it, it would spill over and be bigger than the build plate of this printer. This is like the Panamax of 3D prints. So yeah, it was either truncate it or do some kind of weird thing where I print like an eighth of the puzzle at the time, but that just wouldn't really make any sense. So, the core of the puzzle is held together by 16 40mm long screws, which On final assembly, I'll probably also add super glue to these two halves just to be like ridiculously over-engineered. Which, you know, in my case, Core's track record, probably a good idea to over-engineer this. So, I'm going to assemble this just so you guys can see what it looks like, and also to get some size comparisons. All right. And here we have it. I've never actually assembled the entire full core with all the panels before, and it is a gigantic ball. In comparison to the 22x22 core, I mean, this might be a slightly misleading size comparison because this is the core of an internal 4x4, so there's like an extra layer of mechanism. So you could probably think of the core as being maybe like this tall in comparison, whereas this is just kind of a straight up like Mega Minx core. It's not it doesn't have any internal pieces or anything, but oh my goodness, as you can imagine, this puzzle is going to be pretty gigantic, like probably that almost out of frame tall compared to 5x5. It's yeah, it's ridiculous. So here are the centerpieces that I got so far. Again, at this point, like, the core is finalized. I'm obviously not reprinting the core. But at this point, we're getting into sort of the experimental. Designs are not 100% fleshed out in terms of, like, the overall thing is solidified, but the details are not there. So here we have, this is the old version of the centerpiece. This is the new version. The old version just took kind of long to print and had sort of weird geometry going on. I had to do a bunch of iterations on the center cap because the first one is too loose. The second one is also too loose. And it's just kept together with a little bit of tension from a little lip. Nice and simple. I also added a little, it might be hard to see, kind of a star pattern in the center, and that's just to add a little more extra plastic, just to give this thing a little more structural integrity, because again, the worry that this thing is going to blow up on me again, but I think I've made the necessary design changes. I'm also adding washers, so it's not just the head of the screw that's holding the puzzle together, which is what happened with the 22x22, which looking back is an egregious design flaw, to say the least. So this time I'm playing it a lot safer on the centerpieces. As for corners and edges, pretty simple design. I just added an extra little lip to the pieces so it can just be independently a Mega Minx core, which is kind of nice for assembly. Just makes the thing slightly more stable and doesn't really affect turning quality, so why wouldn't I? I have been having issues with pieces. I guess this is actually not so bad. This corner has a good example of it. Pieces with like big gaps. Not sure if you can see that. Yeah. That's caused by pieces lifting off of the build plate, and the solution, which I've only implemented in this piece so far, is to have like a big bevel right at the edge. It doesn't affect turning quality at all, but it prevents the pieces from, well, it helps significantly with keeping the pieces on the build plate and not bending. Now you might be wondering, why do I, what is this piece? Why is it, like, it doesn't make any sense. This piece is, I guess I'm calling it a reference block. It's basically my measuring tape. So when I'm making the centers, I'm going to be able to make a row and then place them against this block, kind of where they're meant to be, and judge the engineering fit and the tolerances. And the reason why I'm doing it with sort of a printed out reference like this instead of just busting out the digital calipers and measuring the pieces manually is because it's kind of, everything's askew. It's not like the 22 by 22 where it was nice right angles and perfectly square pieces. Everything is much more askew here, so it's a lot harder to measure. So I plan on printing out little tools like this to help with being able to measure things and just generally increase the accuracy without necessarily having to use digital calipers to try to dial everything in. Especially because the pieces are like, the layers are 4.5 something millimeters. They're not like a nice clean number that's easy to do mental arithmetic with. So yeah, printing out little tools like this is something I'm experimenting with to see if it helps with accuracy. So on to the actual edges, the actual layers, the 19 layers. So you can see here, again, these have issues with the pieces splitting a little, well, not splitting, but lifting off the build plate and creating gaps. But again, I've implemented the solution for that with other pieces, so it should be fine. So yeah, this is, each edge contains 8 pieces. The mechanism might not be a little clear to see in black, but it's kind of it's a slightly backwards mechanism. The hooks are going in the wrong direction, and the reason for that is to make the pieces easier to print without needing supports, or minimal supports. It doesn't really affect how the puzzle holds together, it just looks a little bit weird. And I also made it so each layer, there's kind of a pair of layers where you have one hooking under the other. Again, that's like a little change to classic floating anchors. It doesn't really, at least this is all speculation, I'd imagine it doesn't really affect the turning quality at all. It's just sort of a slight, it distinguishes the pieces, it makes them easier to sort, and it also makes it so for every other layer, the pieces can pretty significantly sort of separate without popping out of place, whereas you can see on the normal ones it takes very little to pop out of place. Just a little thing I'm experimenting with. I'm not sure if it's going to make any difference. I know it'll make the pieces very slightly easier to sort, but I also plan on making little markings to make it a little bit easier. And the only other pieces I have assembled or printed out as tests, again, these are all, I'll be redoing the tolerances to get them all dialed in, and these pieces are also not filleted, but these are the centers, or the middle star centers, I guess. Yeah, let's just fit in like that. And here is what a full edge of the puzzle looks like. It is 140 millimeters to an edge, so pretty gigantic and absolutely ridiculous. I imagine it's going to be pretty interesting to turn. Not only because of how big it is, it's also going to be insanely heavy. Now my hands can hook onto a full edge like that, which is going to be good, because I want to solve this puzzle. I'm going to try to make it stable enough. We'll see once it's assembled if it's realistic to solve or not. But it would be cool to do a gigantic solve of a puzzle with... I think the 33 by 33 is the only puzzle with more pieces, but as far as I know, it hasn't been solved. So it'll be the biggest puzzle ever solved, which would be pretty cool. And also something I didn't really get a chance to do with the 22 by 22. Again, kind of an ambitious goal. It would probably take days or even weeks to solve, but it would be pretty cool. So yeah, this has been the longer than planned intro to a series where I start putting this puzzle together. Or working out the finer details and start actually printing final pieces. Now, this puzzle is going to be stickerless. So none of these black pieces are actually the final pieces that are going to be used. Everything's going to be printed in colors, and that's why the center, like all these edges are split, and the corners don't need to be split in 3, but they are split in 3, so they can be 3 different colors. Same with the wings. I could probably print, well, I don't know, there actually isn't a good print orientation for these without splitting them in half, so that's part of why I'm doing stickerless, because the pieces need to be split anyway. So might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Anyways, yes. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna walk home now. It's I didn't think. Yeah. Be sure to I don't know. I'm gonna get out now.